Uh-oh. I did a boo-boo. If you're watching us on YouTube, just give me a moment. Stand by. I had made a little effort there. Cancel. Okay. See that. Come on. See if that will work. All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you. Hoping we're on Facebook Live for everybody out there. I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but we will check out right now. Again, it's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I'm trying to do it differently each and every time. I don't know. I'm running out of ways to do it differently. If you can, please follow, subscribe, do whatever you can to go ahead and support us here at the Lakers Fast Break. And also, I do want to mention that on the Pop Culture Cosmos coming up this week, we're going to have, actually comes out tomorrow on Monday, we're going to go ahead and have the director of the #1 movie right now on HBO Max. It's going to be Seth Porges from Class Action Park. So you want to check that out on the Pop Culture Cosmos this week as well. Well, we've had a great time today. If you're a Lakers fan, kind of nervous because there was a big comeback in the third quarter, but it was a matter of Lakers being that surfer dude because they were riding the wave today. The wave goes up and the wave goes down. And it certainly did so today for the Los Angeles Lakers, but it was held enough as far as the wave is concerned for a 117-109 victory over the Houston Rockets. And here today, first off, to go ahead and talk about today's game are three great guests indeed. I'll actually go ahead and round them off. First off, it's my good friend. He is here every day for NBA playoff coverage. It is Rafael Barlowe from NBA Draft Junkies. You got to go ahead and support everything that he does. There's NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube for everybody out there on Facebook Live, plus his two awesome shows, Run the Floor podcast, and also as well the NBA Draft Junkies. They're available now everywhere you get your podcasts. It is Rafael Barlowe. LakerTom is also Magic Man, aka Sean Grice from LakerHolics.com. Be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.com. All right, guys, a good win for the Lakers, but like I said, Rafael, they held out against the wave. The wave went up. The wave went down, but the Lakers rode the wave long enough for the victory today.
Playoff Rondo was real.
Yeah, boy, I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it, my friend. Just like, okay.
He lived up to the name, and Westbrook was just awful for Houston. And in my opinion, the Rockets need Westbrook and Harden to combine for 50 to 60 points to have a chance. If they don't, then it's going to be a short series for them. And because they got help from Gordon tonight, but Rondo was key. In my opinion, Rondo was the X factor. I think he had 10 points, 9 assists, 5 steals, only 1 turnover. And then Morris was big in the first half when he hit, what is he, like 4 for 4 from 3 or 5 for 5, something like that. So
4 for 4.
Yeah, to me that was the biggest difference. I know with Houston, no matter what, whether they're up 20 or down 20, they always have a chance to come back because they can go cold or they can get hot. And so as far as the wave, I wasn't really shocked by that. I didn't think they were out of the game when they were down by 20, just because that's just how they play. It's their identity. But Rondo was the X factor, in my opinion. Look at LakerTom. He's shaking his head like, yeah, I told you so.
But there are times, though, when it gets nervous when Rondo is just they give him the Russell Westbrook parking lot space, and he gets baited into taking those shots way before he actually needs to go ahead and make that decision, like early on in the shot clock. Just because they give him space, just because they give you space doesn't mean you have to take that shot. In fact, Russell Westbrook had a clear, wide open 3. Instead, he should have driven it into the lane instead.
To me,
I think you got to take it.
Hold on, guys. Go ahead, Rafael.
Also, I think you have to take it just to keep the defenses honest. Like last game, Russ hit that big three. That to me was the biggest difference. And then, but he missed it this game. I know they're going to leave Rondo open, but he hit one. He was 1 for 5, and they dared him to shoot that shot at the elbow at the end of the game. And to me, between that or LeBron's shot at the end when there's like 1 second left in the shot clock, to me, those were the backbreaker shots. So you have to at least shoot it to keep the defense honest. And that's what it worked out for Rondo, and it didn't work out for the Rockets today.
Sean, I want to ask you now, my friend. I know you're very anxious to get on, and I just appreciate you joining me today. I want to ask you this. What were some of the things that you were seeing differently today besides a revitalized Rondo? And boy, am I going to hear about it here in a sec with LakerTom. He's just chomping at the bit to get at me. So I want to hear you, my friend. Although there were still good points as well. Kuzma was effective. Markieff Morris was effective. Danny Green had a couple nice shots. Everybody seemed to play well enough today outside, of course, the big two of LeBron and AD.
Absolutely, Gerald. I'd agree. I would say everybody just played their game, did enough to get by tonight. I was looking at the box score, and if you had told me that, Tucker, Covington, and Gordon would be 14 of 27 from 3, and then I'm thinking, okay, like Rafael said, if James Harden has 30 to 35 points, you had Westbrook in there, that could spell...
That's usually a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And yet, at 2:09, with the game in doubt, the Lakers made the right decision defensively. Westbrook has the ball. He passes it back out to Harden. Harden has AD one-on-one. Rondo's right there. Rondo comes and helps AD. Harden passes it back out to Westbrook, and LeBron has a choice. He can either run out to Westbrook while he's shooting, or he can leave PJ Tucker in the corner open. Now, which decision would you make at that moment with Westbrook not shooting the three very well?
Well, obviously that's the case. But the thing is, if you're Mike D'Antoni, you have to think about seriously if you want to take Russell Westbrook out in those points of time, because you're caught between the rock and
it well too. You could have replaced Westbrook with House in that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, there were a lot of options that D'Antoni could have gone to, but then again, it's the mindset of what Russell Westbrook, because he can either take you in or he can take you out of a ball game. And last but not least, I want to go ahead and introduce again LakerTom coming in with us, my friend. All right, you can go ahead. You've been waiting all season for this.
Pretty much.
The one time that he does show up. Let's hope it continues for us. Playoff Rondo. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, it's kind of funny. I've been ranting all day on Lakerholics.com, and primarily my screams have been about Frank Vogel's coaching. The poor decisions he made by starting the fourth quarter with Rondo and a big man as a combination that just takes your offense out and takes your defense out. I thought that there were some good signs in this game. The biggest good sign was the two bigs, Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, played a total of 8 minutes. They were -9 in the 8. Well, Howard didn't even play.
No.
But McGee was -9 in his 8 minutes of play.
How did he get hurt?
He twisted an ankle.
Yeah, he
when?
Did he get hurt?
Yes.
Really? I was giving Frank credit for having some brains.
But when did he get hurt? Was it on the celebration on the LeBron alley-oop? He was jumping up and down.
I don't know, but
I didn't see the play.
You just can't play those guys in that situation.
It was early in the third quarter, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. He took him out immediately after 3 straight threes at the start of the third quarter, and that's where he got his -9. He played about 7 minutes in the first half. Had a +1 because the Lakers had a 10-9 lead. But the key to this game is that we dodged 33-point differential in 3-point shooting from the Rockets. And I mean, before the game, I was just saying that we have to be very careful because the Rockets are going to come out and they're going to have one of those games where they just rained threes down on you, and this was the game. And thank God, whether for whatever reason Frank Vogel got smart and stayed with Anthony Davis at the 5 and a little bit of Morris at the 5, because that's what saved us. We outscored them 24 points on 2-point shots. So we made up for a good hunk of that differential that we lost in the 3-point shots. And hopefully they're not going to shoot that well next time. The defense was inspired most of the night. I give the Rockets a lot of credit, man. Mike D'Antoni, I know he's been belittled by so many Laker fans, primarily because of his one stint with the Lakers, but that team is a well-coached team. They play rough, tough defense. They held their own on the boards again. P.J. Tucker was just a monster underneath. Harden is Harden. What else can you say about the guy? But that team knows how to move the ball. I give them a lot of credit. The series is not over. I still think we're going to win it in 5, but we're going to have to make some adjustments. We did a better job of getting the ball to Davis in situations where he was on the move. We had a better job of cutting. We got great 3-point shooting from Morris coming in. Danny Green, KCP had very bad games, in my opinion. I can't even hardly remember KCP scoring. Did he?
Yeah, he scored 5. He got 5.
He got 5? Okay. I know Danny made 3 threes. One of them was a clutch 3, so that was good. And Danny, I thought, played better defense than he usually played. He wasn't beaten by guys getting in there, and our rotations were great. I still would, I like that Vogel played some zone. I thought that threw them off every time we did that. I would just like to see more 5 out. I mean, I watched the Rockets play 5 out, and you watch how easy it is for them to get into the lane when they do that. And there were several times when Anthony took the ball from outside or LeBron took the ball from outside and was able to get all the way to the rim. We just need a little more innovation on the offensive end, and we need to keep McGee and Howard on the bench, at least in the series. It's no disrespect to them, but they don't fit in the style of play that we're going to have to face.
Well, that's what I told you weeks ago, that this was going to happen, especially with Howard in that, as far as shortening the rotation to a 7.5 or that type of thing. We saw Dion Waiters for a second, but again, defensive lapses are going to cost him each and every time.
He got hurt.
He got hurt as well?
He got hurt.
Okay. Well, then we'll have to take a look at that.
He pulled his groin. So.
Oh, okay. But still,
that's the main reason he was out.
But still, defensively,
we got a win that we needed. LeBron played great. AD played great. The Rockets played great. The Lakers played great. It was a good game.
Again, as I was going to say, defensively, he's going to be a struggle as far as anytime he's in there. So if he does get back to health, him trying to, crack a place in the lineup is going to be difficult simply because of the fact it's hard for him to, get those rotations out. But still, 44%. Go ahead.
Sorry, Gerald.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the way Alex Caruso can defend in this series, he's a much better tool to be used than he was last time. He's not being asked to chase Damian Lillard and CJ all over the floor to follow, catch, and shoot guys or off the dribble. He's being asked to basically glue himself to that corner and don't move.
Absolutely. But also hitting 44% of your threes. We talked about how Houston hits 41% of threes, but again, they're taking a lot more threes. So it is difficult to go ahead and make that up. They did make it up tonight, but when you're shooting a lot less threes like the Lakers are, it is going to be a problem going forward if you're going to give you up that the rotations still were very slow when it comes to the way they were defending the Rockets. Those corner threes, as Rafael would probably allude to, are driving LakerTom nuts. PJ Tucker was still hitting threes. I want to ask you this, Rafael. When it comes to defending in threes, I would say give up more of the wing threes instead of the corner threes, because they seem to be overplaying, going for the wing three, then the player on the wing passes it into the corner, and that's how they're getting a lot of threes. I'd say, you know what? Go ahead and make those threes from the wing. I'll dare you to shoot those threes because you're going to probably hit it at a lower percentage than you will from the corner.
Well, I think Eric Gordon would be the one shooting the wing threes, and he's the better 3-point shooter, well, at least reputation-wise, and more dangerous shooter than the guys that are going to be in the corner. So it's kind of like pick your poison, because Tucker can
I
get
would
hot.
still go with letting Gordon shoot the threes.
Well, that's where I think it's tough, because if you close out on Gordon, if you do a hard closeout on him at the slots, then he can drive it to the basket. Well, if you give a hard closeout on Tucker, then other than that one play at the end of last game, which is the rare time I've seen him make a shot inside the 3-point line where he caught it and made like a little soft touch floater, I think that's more rare than normal. So, like I said, it's kind of pick your poison, because Gordon can attack closeouts.
Oh,
Other
absolutely.
guys can't.
And he's very solid in doing that. But like you said, pick your poison. I'm just going to choose the poison as far as a wing is concerned, because statistically, to me, I think that's a little bit more difficult a shot. They also like the top of the keys. I would like to say, you know what, guard the top of the key, guard on as far as the corner threes. I would let them have the wings and see what happens from there. But the Lakers played a lot of junk defenses, especially in the first half. I noticed Frank Vogel tried to shake up a little bit. LakerTom, were you liking what you saw, at least initially on that excellent first quarter played, that they were throwing a lot of junk defenses at the Houston Rockets?
Yeah, I really did like that. I think you can't do the same thing over and over, because these guys are so damn good at their game that they make adjustments and they move the ball. I still think that they ought to try a triangle and two, because I think that basically you want to keep Davis in the middle, and they played a 1-2-2 zone, which worked at times. But the problem with that zone is that you got your two guys that are down low basically have to go a long way to get to the corner. And everybody wants to get you to take above the break threes rather than head-on threes or corner threes. And the problem is that those passes are always the easier passes to make. Those are the guys that are always open, just because you don't stay with the people in the corner. I saw Caruso at least allowed 2 or 3 corner threes because he was overhelping. But Caruso also had a good game, I thought, defensively. He stayed in front of his man. He made some excellent passes on fast breaks. Made a couple of nice lob passes to LeBron. He made one great one to Kuzma. I can't complain. Listen, I thought we took what was maybe the best game that the Rockets could throw at us, other than Westbrook perhaps playing better. And Matt D'Antoni saw what was happening with Westbrook, because he pulled him out of there in the third quarter and put another shooter in, and that's when they really came back and gave us all we could handle at that point in time, when they surrounded Harden with shooters. So, this is at least we made the adjustments, that we didn't go with Howard and McGee. We made that adjustment. I'm happy to that extent. I thought we shouldn't have started the game with them, because in both cases we lost points. We gave up points. We were a -8 for the time that McGee was in there. And you just have to face it that in this particular situation, the smart move is to play the other 8 guys and not to play those 2 guys. They'll be part of the rotation going forward, but they're not the right matchup against the Rockets.
Go ahead,
I thought
Rafael.
McGee did a good job of altering shots in the first 4 or 5 possessions of the game, even though he may not have got any blocks.
Turned the ball over twice. And
the first play of the game, they ran a play for him.
He gave up 2 threes. During his period of time, he gave up 2 threes and had 2 turnovers.
Right.
But he also, again, like Rafael was saying, altered the ball a couple times, blocked shots, did provide some decent defense. Go ahead, Magic Man.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, Gerald, the pace. I agree with what everybody's saying. I also think that the pace of the game, even though the Rockets did score 109, it didn't feel like an up and down game. Even though they were making over 40% of their threes, it felt like, to me, what LeBron said in the first game was true. Yeah, we got a feel for their speed. Like, he wasn't gonna let everybody know what he was looking at. But this is what I was kind of referring to when I said, LeBron James teams lose 40% of their game ones, whether he's been in Cleveland, whether he's been in Miami, and now with the Lakers twice. And I think he just looks at game ones as more of an adjustment. What matchups can I exploit? What matchups are going to give us problems? What schemes can we use here? Like, the guy's just a Rolodex. He's pretty much a Rolodex of composition. And I think the next game is going to be very different than the two we saw already.
Well, I'll tell you what, he did play well today. Efficient 10 of 17 shooting, 28 points. Anthony Davis chipped in 34. Just a well-rounded performance from everybody else, from Markieff Morris, again, getting those 4 3-pointers in the first half. Kyle Kuzma, 6 for 7. Rajon Rondo, again, as LakerTom would love to so point out at me, he did get chip in, like I said, with an all-around game, and Rafael said he was the X factor. I was amused, though.
Rondo, for sure.
I was amused, though, when I saw that graphic to start the game with JaVale in there, and I, we told you Frank Vogel's not going to make a change this early in the series.
It'll be interesting to see if he makes a change the next game, because he should. He almost lost this game.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Lost this game by not making that adjustment.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just Frank Vogel and went to the Mike Budenholzer School of Coaching. He's not going to make changes unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah, Mike. Look where that got Mike.
Yeah. Well, Rafael, I want to ask you this, my friend. Still, if you're the Rockets, 40% shooting, everybody seemed to play well outside of Russell Westbrook. Is this a note to Mike D'Antoni that you might need to go ahead and have more shooters out there and less of Russell Westbrook? The thing is, though, he can put you into the game just like he can take you out.
No, I mean, you knew what you were getting out of Russ when you traded for him. So you have to stick with it. I think he could easily be effective next game. Yeah. And I mean, in my opinion, I feel like he got off to a rough start because maybe he started off like 1 for 5, 1 for 6. And a lot of those shots were altered by JaVale in the first few possessions of the game, because it looked like their game plan was to get him going early and attack. And he just had a rough game. I think that if you're Houston, even though you lost, you have to feel confident because you were down 20 at one point and you came back, and it was, it was probably you had a chance to win until maybe like the last 3 minutes of the game. And that was with Russ playing awful. And then Harden and Westbrook had more turnovers than assists combined. So I think on one hand, you have to feel confident. You're tied at 1-1, and the one game you did lose was because your second best player was awful. and then Rondo and Kuzma had good games. I mean, they're efficient from the floor. So I don't think that they should be too concerned. As far as adjustments, I don't even know if they need to really make any adjustments other than maybe get Russ the ball in the middle when they're attacking Harden and allow him to play 3-on-2, which he should have 2 guys in the corner. And then it would force the defense to decide Russ layups or corner threes. As far as the Lakers, I'm like LakerTom, I'm curious to see what they do, because even though it's 1-1, how do you justify changing your lineup that's got you this far? If you're down 0-2, then you have an excuse, like we need to make this change. But 1-1, I think they need to stick with the lineup because they won the game, even though McGee's minutes in the second half weren't good. I thought in the first half he did make somewhat of an impact. But like I said earlier, it was weird that the first play of the game was like an action play for JaVale McGee in the middle of the floor. I thought that was very strange.
Well, they got off to a real sluggish start in the first minute or two, and I know that was just like accentuating and perpetuating LakerTom's fears as far as the Lakers getting off to bad starts. So they did turn it around real quickly, and they ended up with a great first quarter. They were not able to carry the momentum all the way. If you're the Lakers, LakerTom, I want to ask you this. You cannot continue to count on 44% shooting from behind the arc, even if you're not shooting anywhere near as much as the Houston Rockets. What are you going to do?
We actually shot 61% from behind the arc.
Well, it's 44. I've got 44. 12 of 27 from behind the arc.
12 of 27.
12 of 27. Okay.
Yes, at 44.
I got that stat earlier when I was trying to put things together.
Okay, well, 61. If they shot
things
61%, that would be really something. But yeah, it's 44 is darn good.
That was
First off,
Marcus Morris carried.
41% is exceptional for the Rockets. As Rafael said many times, their game is not to rain threes on you with efficiency, but to rain them on you with volume. And I think one of the big things that was really a turnaround in the game was that we outscored them in fast break points 20-6, and we outscored them in points in the paint 54-26. So that's how you have to offset 33 points deficit in 3-point shooting. You really have got to we got 12 more 2-point made 12 more 2-point shots. We were much more efficient from the twos. We were much more efficient in the paint, and we basically pushed the ball all the time. And that's the best way that we can beat their defense. We let them get set up. It's a really hard situation because they're going to pack it in, and then you're really going to have to shoot lights out in order to get a lot of points in the half court.
Go ahead, Magic Man.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Gerald, yeah, I mean, fast break points, they only had 6. So the threes they're getting are really more off half-court sets, broken scramble plays. They're not really, like LakerTom and Rafael have said, they shoot threes by volume. So if they're out in transition and they're bombing those, that could be a different pace of style that we don't want to play. Remember last time Tom said that, they could play several different styles. You want to play up and down, they could trap you. You want to play a half-court game and try and suck into the lane, they could trap you there. There's several different ways to skin a cat, right? And they usually find a way.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. Go ahead, Rafael.
I want to add something about the transition. The Lakers, I don't know if they missed in transition. I mean, I know LeBron had a couple dunks. If you remember, there was one play that the Rockets had a steal there in transition. And, Harden moves at his own pace. He's never going too fast in transition. He had Gordon trailing for an above-the-break 3, but he threw a lob to Westbrook to try to get him going. And they missed that one. Then there was another play in the second half. Early in the second half, when they were making their run, they had a fast break opportunity, and they weren't able to convert. While the Lakers converted their fast breaks, but they were also like back-breaking fast breaks,
Yeah.
I know the one lob to, I think was it 2 Caruso to LeBron lobs?
Yeah, 2 of them.
And then another play that I thought was big was Houston was down maybe 9, and then they scored a basket, and then the Lakers ended up getting a fast break off a made shot. It was somebody passed the ball ahead to Caruso, and then
threw a bounce pass to Kuzma.
Kuzma,
Yeah, Rafael, Pop always calls those kind of games and plays like broke back plays. You miss on one end, and then on the other end, you just have to tip your cap and say, you know what, you're the better team tonight.
It just was a better flow, I think, for the Lakers this evening. I think they understood and had a better idea how to go ahead and attack, both from the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I think they just had a better plan. I do want to give credit to the coaching staff for making some adjustments, as LakerTom would like to say. Yep. I know it's not everything that LakerTom wants. I know he would love to.
Guys, I don't really care who he plays. I don't care who really starts. I just don't want to see a big start. And I just don't want to see a big in the game.
Because most of the time it's in the bubble.
I'm talking about Howard and McGee, because they're a liability on offense, they're a liability on defense, and they also make it impossible for Rondo to play. I haven't said anything about Rondo because I actually included in one of the articles I wrote that I didn't think Rondo should play either. So hey, nobody's perfect, but the thing is, Rondo, if I could see that Rondo might start in lieu of McGee. That's a trade-off, I think, that you might see Frank Vogel buy off on. I don't think he's going to start Kuzma. But it's an interesting situation because it turns LeBron into more of a scoring weapon, and
Well, and LeBron.
Go ahead, Rafael. I think Rafael. Hold on, Sean. I think Rafael wanted to go ahead.
I was asking LakerTom, do you think Vogel says, you know what, JaVale? I know your ankle's bothering you. We're not going to risk it. So we're going to put you on a minutes restriction this game. Rajon, you're starting.
No, what I think he does? I think he says to him, JaVale, you're going to start the rest of the playoffs, man. But against the Rockets, it doesn't make sense for us to start a big man and have you out there at the three-point line trying to guard somebody out there. And I think JaVale's enough of a team player that he wouldn't have a problem with it. I just don't. I don't see that. I don't see it as a coach not worrying. JaVale's been around long enough. He understands the game. He understands the matchups.
He's won 2 championships with Golden State. I mean, and that was coming off the bench, and that was coming sporadic.
I can see the benefit that if Rondo plays well, I can see the benefit of him in the lineup, and it makes a lot more sense because the team would get off. One thing I really hate is how we start games with fadeaway jump shots. Every time that I've coached a team, my rule always was at the start of the game, at the end of the game, you never do anything but go to the basket. It's just how you have to start the game. You want to be aggressive. You want to start aggressive. You want to finish aggressive. And you just can't settle at an early time of the game with jump shots. I don't care if you're Anthony Davis and you can hit all of those twos and those fadeaways. And man, I wish Anthony could stay off of the floor. He's on the floor. He and JaVale just mop up the floor the entire game. But I just like to see us start by attacking the basket and running plays to attack the basket, to get fouls, to get things off of the right start, because we haven't been doing that. We didn't do that at the start of this game, and we didn't do it at the start of the third quarter, and it could have cost us because this was one of those games where the Rockets were hitting those threes. And believe me, they weren't contested threes they were hitting. They were wide open threes because we chose that. That was the poison that we chose. We chose to double Harden to take the ball out of his hands and to let Gordon and Tucker beat us.
Go
and
ahead,
they
Matt.
almost did.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, this whole PJ Tucker and AD, it's really interesting to me. Having spent some time, pretty much my whole life almost in Toronto, I remember when the Raptors got PJ Tucker, and I remember Raptors fans being told that PJ Tucker is the LeBron stopper. Watch out for PJ Tucker. Yes, and when LeBron rolled in with Cleveland, they just mopped the floor with them. I mean, there's that funny meme out there about PJ and I think it's Kyle Lowry talking about who's going to guard LeBron. And Kyle basically says, yeah, you know what, PJ, you can guard him.
Yes, indeed. So
Well, they call it LeBronto, so he didn't have a shot.
But
I have a question for you guys real fast.
Okay. Go ahead, Rafael.
How do you think Dwight reacts to a DNP CD?
Not as good as JaVale.
I agree with that.
Not as good as JaVale either.
Yeah.
Well, but still, the point is that if the Lakers are winning and, Dwight doesn't have an excuse, but this is something that Rafael and I had talked about weeks on end, that it was going to come to a point where if they were meeting up against a team that goes small or that is small, like Houston, that Dwight Howard was going to be the odd man out. It's nothing against him as far as his play is concerned, but you saw in game one how ineffective he can be because he will just not go out as far as to the three-point line. He only stretches as far as at the end of the paint, and that's all you can expect. So if it goes back to an inside game, an inside battle with another team, he'll be fine. Going to if they're playing the Clippers or the Nuggets or pretty much anybody from this point except for Miami, which we'll get into in a second. That could be another situation where they might have to go small. But I will say this, that Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee can expect a lot less minutes. And there could be very well a possibility that they could still stick Rondo in there or someone like a Kuzma or somebody in the starting lineup. It is going to be the reality, especially if, again,
or Morris,
especially if
Marcus at the 5 and spread the floor. It would be the way that I would go, but of course, I've given up on that happening at this point in time.
Well, again,
Keith just knows what to do out there. That's another Swiss Army knife that the two of those guys have.
Well, again, if it comes down to the point where if the Lakers do suffer a game 1 like meltdown in game 3 or game 4, you will see adjustments made. And I think that's when Frank Vogel might reach into the cupboard to go ahead and bring out a Markieff Morris at the center position, or go ahead down to a Rondo and take out a JaVale McGee and finally make LakerTom happy in that sense. But let's go ahead and before we head on out to the Milwaukee Miami game, which Rafael almost had right. I want to go ahead and ask you this, Rafael, real quick. Your thoughts on the things that are going to be done for game 3. I mean, we've always talked about how Houston doesn't really make an adjustment and they don't really have many adjustments that they can make. What can the Lakers do to go ahead as far as to keep playing consistently and just be able to ride those tides even more?
Is that for me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi went out for a second.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, woo.
Yeah, I heard the very end of the question. I don't, like I said, Houston can't really make too many adjustments as far as personnel, as far as what different lineups, but I think they have to get Russ in the middle more. And really, you just need a better game out of Russ. If I'm them, I'm okay with this game. You just need a better game out of Westbrook. And you have to say, well, Westbrook was -14, Rondo was +28. And you have to gamble and say, can the Lakers maintain that? Can there be such a big difference between the point guards for the rest of the series? But if I'm the Lakers, I'm also confident too. So I think this is a pretty evenly matched series. It's just a good chess game. It's going to come down to
which team imposes their will the most, do you think?
It's going to come down to the Lakers in 5.
It's coming out. I still say the Lakers in 6, but Rafael, you just like you were going to say, because you got cut out again, which team imposes their will the most and which team is the best at doing what they do best? Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, and the Rockets have already made the Lakers somewhat adjust because they've changed their rotation up a little bit. Dwight has already got a DNP-CD, and if LakerTom gets his wishes, then JaVale will be on ice until possibly the next round. So to me, that would be a mental advantage if I'm the other team, because I got the number 1 team, the favorite going into the series, to somewhat scrap their traditional lineup.
And they blink first, if that's pretty much what it comes down to, is you're making the Lakers blink first. Magic Man, go ahead.
Doesn't matter who blinks first. What matters is that both teams took haymakers from the other team today and came back, and that says that, this is the NBA. These guys can beat us. Both teams know that. And so they both have to come out, and then both teams played with a lot of effort. And today it wasn't like the game on Friday night where the Lakers just didn't come out with the effort that the Rockets did. So I think what it comes down to now is that it's very simple. LeBron and AD are better than Harden and Russ.
Magic Man, what do the Lakers need to do to make sure they go ahead and prevail in Game 3?
Yeah, you know what, Gerald? I think we definitely need to see playoff Rondo again. He needs to show up in some way, shape, or form if the Lakers are going to win Game 3. I need more out of Danny Green. I watched him play a lot last year, obviously, with the Raps in the playoffs. While he didn't, in some games he'd have zeros as far in the points category, he would still be visible. He'd still make a defensive play here and there. There'd still be some focus. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing some inconsistency as far as his focus and attention to detail, and it's troubling. It's troubling. I need to see playoff Danny Green too.
Well, there you go. Something to look forward to Something to have Laker fans take an eye on and keep an eye on coming up in Game 3 at Heads Up on Tuesday. So we'll look forward to it. It's nice because we're still getting that day after day after day of playoff basketball. But before we head on out, guys, we want to cover real quickly Milwaukee not listening to Rafael Barlowe and not going down without a little bit of a fight. They pulled it out today in overtime, 118-115 over the Miami Heat. Again, just an amazing game by Chris Middleton, who really showed up to play today. Magic Man, I'll start off with you first. Giannis Antetokounmpo re-injures the ankle. My gosh, and I was talking about Rafael before we came on and talked about how efficient he was during that period of time. 11 minutes, 19 points in that 11 minutes. Truly amazing, but he is now very much a question mark for Game 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, Gerald. I'd be very surprised if he did play. I expected Milwaukee to win this game just out of pride. The fourth game is the toughest to win. Nobody wants to lose that fourth game. Any team with pride will fight till the end. And that's what Milwaukee did, even without Giannis. I don't expect the same effort in Game 5, honestly. And without Giannis in the lineup, it's basically Spo picking the bones on film, because outside of Giannis, who do you really have to fear on Milwaukee as far as a shot creator goes? I mean, Middleton can get his own shot, but can you ask Chris to create for himself and for others for, 40 to 44 minutes in a game? I think that's a tall ask. I love Chris. I love his game. I just don't think he's that kind of player.
LakerTom, I wanted to ask you this. Something I wasn't familiar with seeing when it comes to a Budenholzer-led team are players playing in the 40-minute range. And in fact, Chris Middleton played 48. That was kind of surprising. Should he do it more?
I don't think he has a choice. I mean, Middleton's going to be, I'll have to rely on Middleton. Middleton's going to have another 40-point game if they have any chance of sticking in and winning a second game. And I think Riley and Spoelstra and the Heat, they know they missed an opportunity. I love the shots that Hero took and make at the end of that game. They're going to finish him off in 5.
There you go, Rafael. Not quite they're done. Yeah, saving off at least another couple days before they need to go ahead and pack.
I thought it was over. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he plays professionally overseas. And so I kind of always respect his opinion to see what he sees as a current player. And when Giannis went out, he says, the ball is going to move a lot more for Milwaukee. So I think they're going to win this game because you're actually going to see everybody touch the ball and get a chance to play. And he was right. And they fought back. And it even makes the situation even more weird now because I think most people thought the series was over, even with him playing. And then when him going down, everyone, I remember seeing some people tweet like, yeah, it's time for me to take a nap before the Lakers game. And then they won. And so the situation becomes really, really weird if they happen to look better next game or if they win. And then, social media and everybody's going to – it's going to be a lot of criticism. So
Giannis may be healthy by then.
So
yeah.
If it's 3-2, do you honestly give them a fair chance to be like the first man on the moon here?
I'm a Yankee fan. I know it can happen.
Yeah, it can. Well, here's the thing. In the modern era, we know no teams come back from 0-3. But does anybody know how many teams have forced a Game 7 being down 0-3?
Only one I know for sure, and me and Gerald talked about it last week, was Blazers versus Mavericks.
Yeah,
and I want to say 0-3, and that was because somebody got hurt, and then Portland didn't know what they had in Zach Randolph, and he came in and he was a monster for the Mavs. And like I was telling Gerald, I was living at home in Nebraska at the time, and being a Blazers fan, and Game 7, and then we had like a tornado watch, and I totally missed
man.
like the last. I think I missed the whole fourth quarter, and that was back before everybody. Well, I didn't have a cell phone where I could easily pull up the stats, so I had to wait log on. But yeah, that's the only time I can think of a team came back down 3-0. We've seen it in baseball, but not basketball.
I grew up in the 90s, so I'm a big 90s like trivia fan, you name it, NBA, cheesy dance music, you name it. So the Nuggets and Jazz came down to game 7. The Jazz were up 3-0 in 94. And Denver came all the way back, forced again. And this is when Utah was really still kind of sketchy. Like, they lost a couple times to Run TMC in the playoffs. They couldn't really get past the Lakers. People were questioning whether, you should keep Malone and Stockton. And then they happened to win that game 7. And, they went on to a couple finals. But that was really sketchy for Utah fans.
This is the bubble, though. If anything
happen.
crazy can happen, we've got the perfect environment for it. No home court, neutral court, no fans.
So you guys
notice that I haven't missed the fans, to be honest.
In the NBA bubble?
Yeah.
Well,
I
feel
as exciting as I can remember.
I know Adam Silver's missing the fans, especially from the
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure the coffers of the NBA teams are missing the fans. Every playoff game is, got to be worth. I don't have any idea, but I know there are numbers for each game what it's worth to a franchise.
Yeah,
I've heard it discussed when they talk about how a series gets extended to 7 games and how much valuable that is to the home team. Because they're going to get 2 of those last 3 games.
Yeah, I think it was 10 to 12 million per game. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's the difference between a team going from the red to the positive. But did you see speaking of the fans, did you see how they talked about how if there were fans at the game, how Lowry would not have been able to get that pass into OG for the shot?
Yeah.
Because
those are the expensive seats that they took out there.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson seat.
Yep.
It's kind of funny also too. I kind of like that nobody gets injured in the underneath the basket on layups.
The stanchion, yeah.
And so forth. They ought to make the court bigger. But it does. That's one of the allure of those front row seats, man, that you can have LeBron James in your lap.
There you go. But before we head on out, you guys talk about what you guys are up to with your sites. Rafael, you said that this series was over. Do you think Giannis is going to be able to gut it out one more game, or do you think he's out and that the Milwaukee Bucks are finally going to be done?
I wouldn't let him play.
No way.
It's the same ankle that he injured the last game, right? For game 3, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And he was limping as he went out after game 3.
But let's say he does play and something happens. What then? Then he's definitely not staying. There's no way in HE double hockey sticks he'd stay in Milwaukee. If something were happened to him in game 5, no way.
Well, I think it would be on him. I think they would have to protect him from himself.
So
you think he'd go to Miami, actually? Did he pull a Kevin Durant?
Yeah, he will. I think he will.
I don't think
Rafael
so.
Was so.
I have my doubts. I look at him and I don't think he's. Listen, it's Durant really put a spotlight on how mean social media can be, and to abandon. Somehow, I could see KD doing it. I'm sure he's not going to do it again. And Giannis doesn't look like to me like the kind of guy. I'm almost thinking that there's still a chance that he might even sign that Supermax contract.
Well, I think there's more than a chance.
I think a guy like Pat Riley could speak his language, though.
Yeah, but to leave to go to the team that beat you, that's
no doubt.
That's not Giannis.
It's the allure of the Heat. Let's be honest. That is now a preeminent franchise in the NBA. If I was a young player, I would be looking at Miami, not just for for the weather and for the environment, but they've built a culture there. The
Go
culture
ahead.
is really good.
Go ahead, Rafael.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if Giannis even entertains free agency. But like we said on the previous show, we don't know anything because he's like Kawhi. He doesn't have a camp that leaks anything. You'll never know which direction he's leaning in.
And he's in Milwaukee.
Yeah. Yep. But even then, like, he doesn't have like Chris Haynes or Shams or any of those guys don't have any
it's not like
exclusives.
it's not like he's the Vatican. There's smoke signals.
Yeah, like Kawhi, I did not think, like, we didn't know what was going on. And
but we found out.
Yeah, I was in Greece at the time. I found it like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, the funny thing about that was when the Raptors fans were talking about, Drake, trying to convince Kawhi to stay in Toronto. I was like, Drake has barely stayed in Toronto the last 10 years. He's probably asking him, what's LA going to be like? Where are you living? When we can hook up? Like, he's more towards
Kawhi wanted to go to LA. He would have gone to the Lakers if they
Drake
didn't
knew
get the
that.
Paul George deal. He really wanted to go to LA. He wanted to go back home.
Well, that's ancient history now, and now we are at a tie.
Free agent in 1 year.
Well, right now it's ancient history right now for us because it's a tie series right now between the Lakers and the Rockets. Let's talk about that sometime in the off season when it's the off season. Stick to the playoffs right now. What we got right now is a tie series between Houston and the Lakers. What we got is a 3-1 lead for Miami, ready to close it out, hopefully on Tuesday for a lot of Miami fans out there. Tomorrow, I want to go ahead and preview those couple games that they're on the slate for Monday, Labor Day. And I want to go ahead and ask you guys real quick, coming up for tomorrow, who do you have between Boston and Toronto, Game 5? And also, who do you have for the Clippers in Denver, Game 3? Sean, I'll go with you first.
Thanks, Gerald. You know what? Even though I live in Toronto, I'm going to pick, unfortunately, I think the Greenies win this game. I think Brad Stevens makes some adjustments. They played a really good game against Pascal Siakam in Game 1. They really kept him out of the low post. Didn't allow him to use his strength or his speed down there. In the second and third game, he got a little more comfortable, right? And when he found Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown on him, he was able to get position and score. I think it's going to be really difficult for him to manage that in Game 5. So, unfortunately, I got to pick the Greenies. But I still like the Raps in 7.
Tom, any thoughts on the well, actually, go ahead, Sean, on your pick for Denver and Clippers Game 3.
I think the Clippers come back and win this one handily. So, Clippers up 2-1.
LakerTom, your thoughts on both games?
I think that I'm almost at the same point that Sean is. I think that the Celtics are going to win the next game, but I'm not so sure they're going to win the series. I think that last minute shot could have changed the outcome of that series. And as far as the Clippers go, as much as I hate to say it, I don't see Kawhi missing those little bunnies, those little 4 and 5 foot shots. And but I do have to say one thing that really surprised me, and I give the coaching staff of the Nuggets a lot of credit because they played some defense in that game. They really played great, scrambling, tough defense, and blocked a lot of shots and really made it hard for anybody who got underneath. And they've got a great point guard, man. That kid can play. So I think the Clippers could be in for a battle. I think that series could actually go 6 or 7 games. But I think it's going to be the Celtics and the Clippers tomorrow.
Rafael, your thoughts on tomorrow's games?
Toronto and the Clippers. I predicted Raptors in 7. I want to see the Nuggets win. You know how like you don't have a choice, but during the game you just find yourself rooting for a team. And
we're Laker fans. We never have that problem. We hate are the Clippers and the Celtics, man.
That's it.
And I don't understand why Laker fans hate the Clippers. Like, it's not a rivalry. I mean, like, it's there's
Patrick Beverley's enough.
Well, I had a question for you guys.
Kawhi spurning us is enough.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. To me, Gerald, Denver is facing a problem because they've already locked in to pay Jamal Murray. They've locked themselves in to play Jokic. And Michael Porter, if he has a great year next year, they're going to have to max him out too. So, of those three, who's the odd man out there? Because somebody's going to have to go. They can't
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Millsap's contract comes off the books.
Yeah, he does. He
And
does.
that's a big one. And then
Plumlee also. I think.
Plumlee
has
comes off, yeah.
Yep. And then I think Barton may be coming off, and he's not even playing.
So
But yeah, I mean,
so you don't foresee a problem with them paying three guys?
no.
Okay.
No, not at all. Just because
I'm saying Mike Porter's like they're all worth it, but I'm saying like Porter's really coming. That guy is coming along.
well, I think they can hold his back issue against him. You know,
For
that's
sure.
just business. You know, but yeah, Millsap makes $30 million this year. So if you slide Porter into Millsap's contract, it's not much of a difference. Plumlee makes 14, so that's 44 coming off the books just with those two guys alone.
Yeah, I'm just to me, I'm wondering is that enough though? Is that enough in a stacked Western Conference? Those three guys.
It depends on what happens with the coronavirus and what that does. Even if they take the flattened salary cap for next year, which everybody's expecting.
Yeah, because they played in 14 playoff games last year. They played in two 7-game series. You know, this one may go 5 or 6. I don't know where they are they going to be this
How
team?
long are fans not going to be able to go to games? And how long will it take before they're comfortable coming back to stadiums? That's going to, I mean, it's not so much the top half of the league that you're worried about. It's the bottom half of the league.
Right. Yeah, that's my concern.
Because you got 8 teams in each division, 7 teams in each league that aren't going to make the playoffs, aren't going to get that playoff money. And that's a perfect time for any of those teams to start building for the future, you know, playing for the lottery and dealing out any contracts they can to anybody else in the top half who's willing to take advantage of coronavirus. I think there's great opportunities for the Lakers in this situation because of their huge local TV contract. It's the local TV contracts are now the big differentiator.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I think Denver's so young though.
7 teams aren't going to get the salary sharing that they were getting before.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot more to talk about again when it comes to later on down the line. We talk about all the different salary caps because we don't even know what the salary cap is going to be set at. So we're going to have to wait and see, not only for this free agency period, but going forward for next year and beyond, at least in the short term, until we actually get back to some sense of a normalcy and people start going ahead and filling up arenas, which could be quite some time indeed. But before we head on out, I'm going to go ahead and say it is going to be Toronto and the Clippers for me tomorrow. I think that Toronto has all the momentum behind them, and that's something to I think what it comes down to is going to be Brad Stevens making the bad call on defense for the set that was there. And I think playing a zone on that last play is going to end up costing the Boston Celtics in the series. And I'll tell you what, right now, the Clippers, you just can't beat them right now as far as in a 7-game series when it comes to Denver, what they have. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but the Clippers right now. I'm
rooting for you to be wrong.
I'm rooting for me to be wrong as well. But right now, you got to go with your head and say the Clippers. And you even mentioned it, Tom. How do you expect Kawhi to have such a bad game once again? It's not going to be. He's not going to be doing it 2 games in a row.
The shots are just too easy, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't do it. But before we head on out, my friends, I want to go ahead for you guys to plug what you're doing. So, Sean, what are you up to at LakerHolics.com?
Hey, Gerald, we got a really great Game 3 preview coming up. Looking at small little adjustments we can make on the defensive end. I really feel that, like Tom said, if we don't overplay our hand there in the corners, you stay glued. I think we could pull out a victory in Game 3 without having angina in between.
LakerTom, what do you got cooking up? I know you say you always got like 2-3 articles on the burner somewhere. So what do you got planned for
just as a teaser for you, Gerald, specifically? The two stories that I'm working on the side are why we shouldn't pursue Giannis and why we should pursue CB3.
All right, LakerTom. I know you said those two, but I'm sure you've got also a playoff Rondo article somewhere in there as well. But you can find all the work.
It'll actually be the topic tomorrow.
Yeah, I bet it will be. You can actually find the great work of LakerTom and also as well Sean Grice, aka Magic Man, today at LakerHolics.com. You see it right there on Facebook Live. Be part of the conversation. You'll also see as well great videos from Rafael Barlowe. You'll see also, of course, every single episode of Lakers Fast Break podcast, plus great 5 things articles from our good friend, Jamie Sweet. And then you also see a lot of good things there as well from, again, Sean Grice and Tom Wong at LakerHolics.com. You go ahead and be part of the conversation where you can interact with them and be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.com. But before we head on out, Rafael, you have the floor, my friend. What are you up to each and every day at your awesome experience known as NBA Draft Junkies?
Same every day. Every day is the same. Just updating content, and I'm putting together a Grant Riller piece. And I did a couple interviews today. I did one with a prospect named Henry Drill, who's a projected second-round pick, and I'll probably put it up tomorrow, but we just kind of talked about the weird predicament that he's in as a player who's in the 2020 NBA draft, but he's actually playing right now for his team in Europe. And there's a chance that if he's drafted, the team may want him to come over right away, which means he's going to have to leave his team in the middle of the season. So it was interesting to have that conversation. So that should be up soon. And then I had a guest who I invited to come on the podcast to talk about his big board. And so we did that interview yesterday, and that should be up on the site also.
I can't wait to see that one because you said some interesting things about it that it's going to make a lot of people talk. There's going to be a lot of comments on that one. I can't wait for it, my friend. For us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, wanted to go ahead and make sure everybody knows that this week on Monday's show, dropping on all podcast formats everywhere, not only do we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture, and there is a ton of news I had to catch up with my good friend Josh Peterson on, but also as well, again, I will be having an interview on Monday's show with the director of the #1 movie, one of the directors anyways, the #1 movie that's now currently on HBO Max. It's called Class Action Park. It is an awesome movie. It's a great documentary. If you get a chance, check it out. It's based off of the 1980s New Jersey-based action park. Actually is considered in the annals of history as the most dangerous amusement park ever created. So if you want to go ahead and check that out right now on HBO Max, or check out why you should go ahead and check it out, you're going to go ahead and listen to my show, The Pop Culture Cosmos, available everywhere you get your podcasts and on radio stations worldwide. And again, each and every day here for fans at the Lakers Fast Break, Rafael and I cover the world of the NBA playoffs each and every day. So we'll be back tomorrow night. You can always get a hold of Rafael at Barlowe500, and I do suggest you follow his Twitter because it's always very interesting and always very insightful, or at NBA Draft Junkies. LakerTom, he's just as interesting for altogether different reasons, but just as interesting. And plus, you can also get a heads up on all the articles that he's doing at LakerTom. Sean Grice, best place to get a hold of him, aka Magic Man, at LakerHolics.com. And of course, us at Lakers Fast Break as well. Well, my friends, it's been great talking to you. You know what? It's just an awesome time. Lakers win again. Lakers win. 117-109. We'll see what they're doing, or let's see what they can do to keep that momentum going into Game 3 on Tuesday. But Rafael and I will be back on Tuesday to talk more. Rafael and I will be back on Monday to talk more NBA playoffs right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.